I am a security camera installer by profession, placing them in various establishments such as banks, dental clinics, apartment complexes, restaurants, wherever people seek safety. Over the past 12 years, I've mastered concealing cameras so they go unnoticed even after repeated viewings. However, I never anticipated utilizing this skill at home. This happened on a Tuesday in October. A client postponed our scheduled job due to permit delays, leaving me free to return home early, around 1 p.m. Upon entering, the apartment had an odd odor, not foul but distinct. It was a cologne I didn't recognize, a sharp and woody scent lingering from someone who had recently departed. Jenna's shoes were by the door, yet her keys were warm on the counter. In the kitchen, she was preparing a sandwich as if everything was normal. I asked about her morning, to which she replied, "Peaceful, just stayed indoors." My name is Nate, aged 38, and Jenna and I have been married for 7 years. She ran a downtown cocktail bar characterized by dim lighting and requiring reservations on Fridays. Her work schedule kept us from syncing up often, as I'd typically exit by 7:30 a.m. She'd still be sleeping then. On a Tuesday, I avoided mentioning the cologne. I ate lunch, switched my shirt, and departed for my next assignment. However, the fragrance lingered in my mind until the end of that day and the entire week. The scent first caught my attention on a Tuesday. I arrived home early because a job was canceled. The client's permits weren't prepared. Around 1:00 p.m., I noticed her car missing from the lot. That struck me as odd, considering she wasn't supposed to be at the bar until 5 and usually spent her free days watching cooking shows or scrolling through her phone on the couch. I didn't give it much thought. People go out, run errands. But the same thing happened again on Thursday, and then another time on Monday, always in the middle of the day. Every time she went out while running wires through someone else's ceiling, she never shared her destination. I would inquire about her day casually, to which she'd respond with boring, just stayed in. Yet her keys were warm upon my picking them up from the counter, and her shoes lay by the door with new scratches on their soles. I chose to dismiss these signs. Jenna and I had been married for 7 years, and while we weren't perfect, neither were we broken, I thought. We still shared most dinners, and she still greeted me with a quick goodbye kiss. However, the phone was the issue that troubled me. It used to be left face up on the coffee table, but now it was always turned over, every time without fail. On a Wednesday morning, instead of driving to work, I parked 2 blocks from our building and waited. I stayed seated in my truck with the engine turned off, observing the parking lot entrance via the side mirror for an hour without any activity. Feeling foolish, I contemplated starting the engine twice, as a grown man spying on his own wife seemed reminiscent of a cliché from a poor-quality film. My initial client called to confirm the appointment, and I informed him I would be 15 minutes late. Eventually, Jenna's car exited the lot, heading left towards downtown instead of right towards the store or gym. I opted not to follow her, merely watching as the vehicle vanished, with my hands gripping the steering wheel. That night, I resolved to install cameras for a few days, simply to gain insight. I reassured myself that it was insignificant and I had expertise in this area of work. I set up 2 small units, one positioned in the hallway and another covering the living room, all wireless, battery-powered, and managed by an app on my phone. After her departure for work the following day, I discreetly placed them. The first 3 days revealed no activity. Jenna on the couch, preparing coffee, departing for work around 4:30, routine life. As I became unwell about my actions, I resolved to act against them on Friday. Just one more day, then done. On Thursday afternoon, I was on a ladder in a dentist's office, guiding a wire through a suspended ceiling when my phone alerted me. The motion detection function from the hallway unit in the camera app notified me. I almost ignored it. After all, I had been receiving such alerts all week. It was just Jenna passing by or the cat jumping from the shelf, nothing important enough to halt my work. Yet curiosity got the better of me and I checked the video. To my dismay, I saw 2 individuals entering my apartment. First was Jenna, followed by a man in a dark green coat. He had his hand on the small of her back, acting casually as if he'd done it numerous times before. Jenna didn't react. Instead, she leaned into his touch. On my phone, I zoomed in, but the image became pixelated. However, I recognized the jacket before the face. The distinctive dark green canvas jacket with a torn pocket on the left side. For years, Cole's jacket had been on my coat rack. It was Cole, an old friend from when we were 22. He assisted me in moving into this apartment. He spent Super Bowl Sunday on my couch, munching on my chips and chuckling at my jokes. He owned the car wash on Belmont and often granted me free washes since that's what friends do. I balanced a phone in one hand and a coaxial cable in the other while precariously perched on a ladder. The receptionist from the dentist asked if I was all right. I replied I needed a moment. After descending, I walked to my truck and remained there for hours, aimlessly driving with no specific destination or plan, only the road and the rhythm of my breath. I didn't return home until after midnight. The apartment carried Jenna's usual candle scent vanilla and cedar. For a brief moment, everything seemed normal, as if I had merely imagined the event, but I hadn't. The video was still on my phone. At 2 a.m., I sat on the rim of the bathtub and rewatched it. I watched it for a third time, hoping to see something new. Perhaps it wasn't Cole. Maybe it was someone who resembled him. Maybe the jacket was merely a coincidence. However, it wasn't just a coincidence. In the fourth viewing, I spotted something I had previously overlooked. As they walked down the hallway, Cole reached up to hang his keys on the hook by my door. Not Jenna's hook or the guest hook, but mine, the one on the left, the one I always used. He was familiar with the layout. He knew which hook would be available because mine wouldn't be there during the day. That's when it ceased being a suspicion. The act of placing his keys on my hook conveyed everything. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't an error or a moment of weakness. Cole had established a routine in my apartment. He had a designated spot for his keys. My wife was asleep just 10 feet away. I closed the app and placed my phone face down on the sink. That night, I didn't sleep. I should have taken action that week. I should have spoken up, prepared a suitcase, contacted an attorney. Instead, I did what I was familiar with. I observed. Every day, I monitored the cameras and saved the footage. Cole dropped by 3 more times that week. Each visit was between noon and 2, always when I was supposed to be elsewhere. I saw them walking together. I saw him hang his keys on my hook. I saw her pouring him coffee in the mug I'd bought for our 5th anniversary, the one with a chipped handle and a blue hue. This became a ritual of its own. I'd sit in my truck between tasks, open the app, and merely gaze. My focus at work began to wane. A client in Buckton complained about the camera angle, while a restaurant job I'd completed 2 weeks earlier went unbilled. My coworker asked if I was well, and I told him it was simply allergies. At night, I'd lie next to Jenna, listening to her peaceful breathing. She slept soundly with no restlessness. 3 weeks passed without a hint of remorse troubling her. This fact disturbed me more than anything else. Each day blended into the next, with me rationalizing that I was collecting proof and constructing an argument. In reality, I was terrified, fearful that the instant I voiced my thoughts aloud, the life I had cultivated over 7 years would become irrevocably dismantled. On a Thursday morning, my phone rang, and it was Cole on the line. He proposed meeting up for a drink after work, suggesting it was just like old times. I ended the call without offering a farewell. My hands trembled not out of fear, but because something within me had changed. For 3 weeks, I'd been a silent observer, and now this man was inviting me out for a beer, as if our friendship remained intact. As if he hadn't been dropping by my home every other afternoon, and leaving his keys on my hook. I opened the camera application, selected the most distinct video, one taken last Tuesday that clearly captured his face as he walked through the hallway, and sent it to him without any explanation. 12:47 p.m., my apartment, down the hallway where my wife stood beside me. After placing the phone aside, I returned to work. An installation at Lincoln Park awaited me that afternoon, which I completed with precision and pride. It was the finest work in weeks. My fingers moved with calm assurance, my mind free of clutter. The satisfaction of focusing on a single task after weeks of distraction made me feel as if I could inhale deeply again. However, Cole remained unresponsive. Neither his call nor text arrived. Only an eerie silence filled the void. That evening, upon returning home, I found Jenna in the hallway scrutinizing the wall above the coat rack. In her eyes, I saw a look that was not exactly anger, but more of a calculation, as if she were running mental equations to gauge my knowledge. You inquired about the duration of our camera usage, and I placed my bag near the entrance, replying casually, "Long enough." Immediately after your question left, you seized your phone. However, you paused and looked at the camera affixed to the wall, attempting to remove it. The mount maintained its grip. I had fixed it into a stud, as I often do for clients. Despite her efforts to pull and twist it, the device remained attached. She then ventured into the living room and focused on my laptop on the desk. She started exploring folders in search of the footage. I observed her from the hallway without interfering. I mentioned, "Everything is backed up for weeks." Her movements paused at the keyboard. She stayed still for a while, staring intently at the screen. Then she began calling Cole. The sound of the ringing reached me where I stood. After 5 attempts, it went to voicemail. She made another attempt, but Cole had already viewed the footage hours prior. He refused to engage in any discussion. I commented, "There's no point. He's well aware." She hung up the phone and fixed her gaze on me. I anticipated tears, arguments, or a clarification. Instead, she just stood there, seemingly accusing me. I moved towards the bedroom, retrieved a travel bag from the closet, and began packing sufficient items for a week. She trailed behind me to the door. She inquired, "Where are you heading?" I sealed the bag, retrieved my keys from the counter, and informed her I would be at my brother's place. I departed the house and drove to Danny's apartment across town. I spent 4 nights on Danny's couch. He asked few questions. He prepared coffee in the mornings, left for work, and allowed me to remain in his living room, lost in thought before a blank wall. Jenna called 11 times on the first day. I didn't respond. She sent lengthy texts filled with words like baffled and convoluted, insisting it wasn't as it appeared. I read the first message and discarded the rest without opening them. On the second day, she altered her tactic. Brief messages like, "Let's chat," then, "Nate, we need a conversation." I nearly chuckled at that one. I owed her a conversation. Cole attempted it once, just a text on the third day. "Nate, let me clarify." "No," was my response. I didn't read beyond those 5 words. I blocked his number and left my phone on the table. Danny witnessed me doing this and merely nodded. On the 4th morning, I woke up early and made a resolution. Not an angry one, but a calm one. I spent the day making calls. Found a 1-bedroom apartment in Ravenswood available immediately. Signed the lease that afternoon with the deposit I'd been saving in a secret savings account that Jenna wasn't aware of. Not because I'd been preparing for this. I just never got around to combining all our accounts, and now I was grateful I hadn't. The next day, while Jenna was at work, I returned to the apartment with Danny and his truck. Within 2 hours, I gathered all my belongings. I left her possessions untouched in their place. Not a single item of hers was disturbed. A week post-move, Danny contacted me at work. He said a man had shown up at the old apartment searching for me. Wearing a green jacket, he drove a black pickup truck. Danny went to retrieve some forgotten mail, and this man was standing outside the building, pressing the intercom. His name was Cole. Danny described him as rugged, unshaven, tired, indicating he hadn't slept well. Cole told Danny he just needed 5 minutes to discuss something with me. Danny informed him I wasn't there anymore and suggested he should cease his visits. Cole inquired about my new address. Danny replied that he was unaware and went back inside. I mulled over this information for the remainder of the afternoon. A part of me desired to hear what he had to say, not because I believed there could be an explanation capable of repairing anything. There wasn't. 16 years of friendship didn't fade away despite my silence and absence. The man who assisted me with a couch and rescued my truck battery still lingered in my memory, yet I neither contacted him nor returned. That very night, Jenna texted, "You could have stayed." Merely 4 words, but they echoed twice in my mind. Placing my phone on the kitchen counter of my new, unadorned apartment, I didn't respond. The place was small, a single bedroom, bathroom, and a kitchen barely accommodating a table for 2. White walls stared blankly, devoid of any pictures, shelves, or decorations, seeming to hint at both freshness and impending departure. I couldn't discern whether I belonged among the former or latter. On a Monday, I submitted divorce documents, spent barely an hour, and walked away. 7 years condensed into a pile of forms and a scrawl of signature. The process felt like an instant erasure. I returned to Ravenswood, lingered in the parking lot for some time before entering. Danny made occasional checks every few days. He never inquired about my well-being, as we both understood the response. He merely phoned, discussed football games or projects he was engaged with, and concluded the call after 10 minutes. That sufficed. I resumed full-time work the subsequent week, accepting all assignments that came my way, regardless of residential or commercial nature. I found solace in having busy hands and a mind preoccupied with circuits and blueprints instead of reminiscences. About a month post-move-in, on a Saturday afternoon, I unpacked the final box. Inside lay my drill, a level and anchor pack, and a small camera unit I'd hastily taken from our old apartment. I scrutinized it for a moment, rotating it in my hand. Next, I secured the drill atop a chair above the entrance door, then descended to verify the camera's view on my mobile device. A clean image, ideal perspective, and the corridor was empty, precisely as desired.